G'day folks, Lone Mojo here. In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at a ninja build for Cyberpunk 2077. This is a build that's based around stealth, throwing knives, and swords. So, as I mentioned, this is a swords and knives build, so they're going to be your primary two weapons. When it comes to the cyberware, this is built around the Sandervesten. The one I use is the Warp Dancer. And if you're not familiar with what a Sandervesten does, essentially it lets you slow down time by about 70%. And with the Warp Dancer in particular, enemies are going to be slower to react to you, and you're going to get an increased crit chance. So it's quite nice for this build. One of the other cyberware I tend to take on most builds is the Heal on Kill. This is just a really good way of getting a little bit of health back every time you defeat an enemy. I'm also taking Mechatronic Core. This is just great for dealing with drones and mechs and robots. In the immune system, I've picked Nano Relays just to increase the duration of the Sandervesten. And in the integumentary system, I choose Subdermal Armor just for an increase in armor. And Optical Camo, which is going to let you go invisible, which is really great when you're trying to be a ninja. In the skeleton section, I've picked Micro Rotors. This will increase your attack speed, pretty self-explanatory. And I've also got a micro vibration generator, which will increase the base damage of melee weapons. This ties particularly well with the swords. When it comes to the leg enhancement, I've got Fortified Ankles, which is the charged jump. I think probably for this build, you'd be better off getting the double jump, especially for traversing around and having that really cool ninja feel of jumping from rooftop to rooftop. But this is a personal preference one for you. Moving over to your characters and your attributes, really you're going to want to stack cool and reflexes. I have some in technical ability as well, but you're probably better off putting that over on body. Cool and reflexes, though, are the main two. Deep diving into the perks, and we will start in the ninjutsu section of the cool tab. And starting from the left, we'll look at Juggler. So the way throwing knives work is when you throw a knife, you'll have a little cooldown before you can throw it again. With the Juggler perk, whenever you defeat an enemy or land a crit, you get all of your knives back off cooldown. So you're going to be able to throw a lot more quickly. From the Shadows is next, and when you start combat, you're going to get 7 seconds with a buff of 20% to your crit chance, and this is going to really help trigger that Juggler combo as well. Crouching Target is going to increase your movement speed while you're sneaking, pretty self-explanatory. And Strike from the Shadows will increase your critical chance by 7% while you're sneaking. So between this and From the Shadows, you're going to have a really good crit bonus to get your knives back. Venomous Fangs means that all of our knives now apply poison. Now, poison is one of the two status effects that this build uses, the other being bleeding. Venom simply does damage over time to enemies, but we've got some other abilities that will combo with it. Corrosive Poison means that the poison effect will now go onto drones and mechs, etc. It is less damage, but it's better than none. With Ghost, your detection time is going to increase by 40%, so it's going to take enemies a little bit longer to respond to you, which means you can do a little bit more damage before combat actually starts. Leg Up will increase your movement speed after a takedown by 30% for 10 seconds, so this will let you tactically take someone down and move yourself into a new position. Dagger Dealer lets you throw knives and is a core ability for this build. Critical Antidote means that when you use a strong attack or throwing knives against a poisoned enemy, it's going to remove the poison effect and deal all of that damage instantly. It's also going to have a 100% crit chance, which means it's going to trigger your Juggler ability as well. Cutthroat will increase your melee damage to targets by 80% after they've been hit with a throwing knife. This is probably better for boss fights where you have to do a lot more damage. Essentially, you throw the knife, run in there and wail on them for 6 seconds, move back out and throw another knife. Assassin is probably something you should consider for any build. Deal 15% more damage to human enemies. Pretty straightforward. Restorative Shadows will increase your health regen by 25% while in stealth. This is just going to be a bit of a utility recovery tool. And finally, we've got Jeepers Creepers. Crouch attacks from stealth with a melee weapon deal 100% more damage and will guarantee a crit hit. So moving over to the Cold Blood section, I'm going to talk about the Cold Blood passive first. So essentially this triggers after you kill an enemy, and for 7 seconds you'll have a bonus to movement speed, and this can stack up to 3 times. So if we look at the first skill I would be Cold and Calculating. Landing a critical hit has a 50% chance of applying a stack of Cold Blood. We're going to be doing a lot of crits with this build, so you're going to be getting the Cold Blood stacks a lot more regularly. Coagulant will mean that your Cold Blood stacks will decay one at a time instead of just all going after the 7 seconds. Predator is just going to give us a bonus to attack speed for every stack of Cold Blood. It's 30% attack speed per stack, so out of the gates that's about 90% attack speed bonus. However, with Coldest Blood, you can increase the max stat of Cold Blood by 2. So now that 30% bonus is going to be multiplied by 5, not by 3. Frozen Precision is going to increase the headshot damage by 5% per stack of Cold Blood, which means that the longer you're fighting, the more damage you're going to be doing with headshots. Blood Brawl kind of ties into the sword build more, but while you've got Cold Blooded active, you're going to increase your damage of melee weapons by 10%. So moving over to Reflex, we're going to take a look at the second half of this build, which is aimed around blades. And as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at a second status effect, which is bleeding. Bleeding, much like poison, provides damage over time debuff to enemies. Moving from the top, the first ability we get is Judge, Jury, and Executioner, which increases damage with blades by 100% against enemies with max health. Good opener. Roaring Water is next, and strong attacks with a blade deal 30% more damage. Pretty straightforward. Flight of the Sparrow reduces the stamina cost of all attacks with blades. This means that you're going to be able to attack more before you have to retreat and regroup. Bloodlust is the first one that uses the bleed debuff bonus, and while wielding a blade you recover 4 health when hitting an enemy with a bleed effect. Fiery Blast will increase the damage of blades by 3% for every 1% of health that the enemy is missing. This pairs well with Judge, Jury, and Executioner simply because you're going to be doing a bunch more damage on your first attack. Stuck Pig is going to increase the duration of bleeding. Sting Like a Bee is going to increase your attack speed with blades by 30%. So that combos really well with the reduced stamina usage, which means that you're going to be a lot more effective in the fight. Deathbolt means that while wielding a blade, you're going to recover health based on killing an enemy, but you're also going to get a movement speed bonus. So this is going to increase your durability and sustain within the fight, and also being able to keep that high tempo that you're looking for. With Crimson Tide, bleeding will now stack 3 times instead of once, so you're just going to be doing a ton of extra damage over time. Blessed Blade increases your crit chance by 10%, pretty straightforward. Crimson Dance means that combos with your blade have a 30% chance of applying a bleed, so it's going to get that bleed debuff out more regularly. And the last one I get is Offensive Defense, which means that when you defensively attack someone with a blade, you deal more damage. Not something I use a lot, but it is nice to have in your back pocket. So let's look at this in action, but before we do, the setup here that I'd like to talk about is the combination of how I would engage in a fight. In a large group, as we're about to see, I like to start with my optical camo, making myself invisible, and then using the knives to try and get an early kill. From there, the momentum of the abilities that you've got means that you can probably throw another knife if you got the kill, but if not, you can quickly take down an enemy with a sword before having to really start thinking about using your Sandervesten. From that point on, it's going to be running around, chopping, throwing, killing, and as soon as your Sandervesten is back online, away you go again. So let's take a look at it in action. So overall, this is quite a fun build. You do sacrifice the ability to do any cyber hacking because of the Sandervesten, but it is a really great build for clearing out large areas of people, and you feel like a badass taking people down with knives, I've got to say. If you've enjoyed this video and you've gotten something out of it, Please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you've got any suggestions about other builds you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, take care.